And if I want to talk about what is happening to me, it's just like we have outgrown a pair of shoes. This is the image that came to me last night, when I was thinking, what am I going to say for the Pele report? It's like, you're just, you've outgrown the patriarchy. Human consciousness and our, evolution is taking us bigger, wider, and broader than the container that has been holding us. The way that we do government, the way that we do business, the way that we do relationship, the way that we do religion, it's too small. It's and it's like technology is showing us, okay, black holes, the origins of the universe. It's taking us outside of time and space, and we're just like really, expanding. Ayahuasca is taking us out of our minds, okay, and I mean, we're just like opening up in so many different ways, levels, and frequencies, okay, to just like, there's way more going on than can be explained by the church, or can be explained by the scientists, or can be explained by the pharmaceutical companies, or the governments, or the scientists, or the technology. It's just like, so things are really, opening, and that is creating a lot of pressure. If you, just try walking around in a pair of shoes that is too small for you. It's not comfortable. It's very uncomfortable. It's like I am getting squeezed. Ouch. This is too small, too limiting, to the point of being painful. I need a bigger set of shoes. We need to be looking at things from a bigger, wider, broader perspective. And it is just, this is the time for us. I encourage each and every one of you to just like really step out of the shoe that is too small. Step out of your life that is too small. You're bigger than this. You're bigger than your problems. You're bigger than the news. You're bigger than, these beliefs. It's time to expand our sense of self, our own authority to become the authors of our own lives. In your relationships, in your job, in your social media, this is the time now to redefine ourselves and to really take a stand.
Hi folks, so January 1st, 2020, and been hearing people speak about the energy of 2020, themes that we can anticipate, energies, etc. Of the year 2020, and from all different perspectives and etc. And so for myself, one of the themes that I feel, I've never really done this, if I had to tap into my intuition, in a sense, into the download, like what comes up for me, and because something did just come up for me a few moments ago, sort of a meditation, if you will, and that's the idea of, it's a return to innocence. Okay. And let's see if we can unpack what that means. It's becoming childlike, in a sense, in a way, but not, right? It's, I think some of you even might know what I mean, or maybe you can even feel it in a way. It's like, for one, I think that we're realizing more so that, how do I put this, that there's a as human beings, we've been feeling, in adults, you think that you run the show. We have this idea that there's governments and professors and scientists and religious figures and whatever it is, and human beings that we pretty much run the show, right? And which is obviously not the case at all. And so we're rather grandiose, and we're larger than life, okay? And we're very confused in this manner. And for some people, I think, because of the level of consciousness and introduction to this newer dimension in a way, or paradigm, if you want to say, that we can feel that it's so large, that it's so universal, right? That it's so ancient. I mean, this process, it's so much larger than our mathematics, our science, our religions, right? Our poetry a lot of the time, our art, etc. It's beyond our words, beyond our vocab, and it makes for myself seem rather not insignificant, but a lot smaller, a lot more part of something a much larger, grander, bigger, wider. Okay, it seems like this veil is sort of falling away of the surface level of things, of the boundary of things, of the timeline of things. Hard to put into words, but it feels like, in a way, a feeling of, to explain it a little bit, I don't know, is that, let's say we've been watching a movie for a very long time in the cinema, and we've been really engrossed in it and taking it for rather real and serious, and for what it was, that this was almost real life, and very connected to the characters, to the narrative, to the drama, right? Which is a fiction in a sense, but we've been very, very much glued to it. It's a fiction that has been a story that has left out the grander, wider, bigger picture of things, the metaphysical, the existential, okay, the spiritual, all right, the interdimensional. It's left all of this out, and it's played, the story that's been going on has been very, very one-dimensional, very narrow-minded, okay, very superficial, very lacking in a higher, greater, wider perspective of things or experience of things, okay? And that's the story that for a lot of us, that's been showing on the walls of Plato's cave. And majority of people are still very much engrossed in that, and they think that's the be-all and end-all. But for some, this screen, I mean, some of us, we're leaving the theater, right? And we're reconnecting with the energies that are present, and with the energies that we've managed to bring forth in ourselves and progress within ourselves into more of a truer experience, more of a direct experience with the mystery of things, with the universality of things, or something like that, right? The more of the psychedelic experience of things. And so we're stepping out of that cinema, and for myself, one thing is, it's a return to innocence, of realizing that it's your purity, right? It's your value, it's your divineliness, but it's also your lack of knowing on the bigger scale of things. There's a surrendering to a certain degree that, like when you're on a psychedelic trip or in your deep meditation or something like that, there is a surrendering. It's like you get to a point where you say, like, I don't really know what's going on. I mean, I'm falling down the rabbit hole here. It's all very, very unrelatable, right? It's unrecognizable. It's, to be a certain degree, it's disorientating, okay? And you can get overwhelmed by it. It's easy to get overwhelmed by it, but the challenge is not to become overwhelmed with it, but to ride with it, to flow with it, okay? To fall with it, right? To go with it, and not try and bring in rationality and the ego mind and identity. You see, because identity, again, is part of that script, part of the movie that was playing on Plato's cave. And so you needed that identity to play in the game, but now you're realizing that it's actually becoming a disadvantage. It's holding you back. It's becoming not just a crutch, but something, an obstacle, right? In a sense, you can't take it with you. This identity, I feel, this identity of being somebody in this world who was somewhat of importance on a superficial egoic level, or something like that. I mean, like what I'm saying is that even if you are somebody who's successful with a lot of money, it's not the weight of your riches, your external riches, your material possessions, obviously, your status, that has any merit whatsoever. That's all means to an ends. Okay? Which I've kind of spoken about in my last talk, I think. Oh man, my phone is ringing. Sorry, so where was I? I'm using my phone to do this recording, and phone calls come through, which I should probably think about next time I do a recording, of putting on flight mode. So you see what I'm saying is that, if I remember, again, the status and your identity doesn't hold much weight anymore when you're moving more into this mystery, into more of the innocence. Okay, there's almost like you're surrendering to the unknown, you're surrendering to the flow, okay, of the mystical, right, of the mysterious, and you've got to be humble in a way. Again, you know, you're not going to know what's really going on. You can't see the full bigger picture, it's too grand, but you can feel it. You can feel how universal it is, you can feel how expansive it is, right? And you can also feel the opposite, which is also very difficult. You can really feel, again, when you're surrounded by people, environments that are holding on to this fabric of reality, right, as much as they can, trying to pin it down, trying to, you know, anchor themselves in it and be entrenched by it, okay, the material world. And so, you know, for ourselves, we go through the calendar months, or the days of the calendar, the weeks, the months, etc., the time from whatever it is, and you know, but man-made time. And for being around people, it's where it is more so business as usual, where, you know, they're really, really dependent on the system. They're dependent on the screen on Plato's cave, and they're very invested in it, and they're very much involved in it, and they very much believe it. They're very much support it. It's very difficult, those moments, and they're exhausting, of course, and they don't resonate. They're becoming more and more intolerable, I suppose, for myself, right? If it's not authentic, if it's not true, if it's not everlasting, I find, right, that kind of energy, if it's not progressive, right, then for myself, I find little to no interest in it. I must say, not only just interest in it, but somewhat of a loathing to it, to a degree, because again, it's almost like the snake shedding its skin, right? That the old skin now is become, and you know, and again, I don't know actually the understanding of the snake skin, but you need to outgrow it, and if you stay within the snake skin, it probably, you know, it's probably not healthy for the snake, at least, you know what I mean. And so it's like, again, staying in the womb longer than, you know, than you need to, in a sense, and holding on to that, you know, holding on like for dear life, not wanting to exit the womb, okay, and it's full term, and you're not wanting to go. And so it is, as McKenna says, the walls are closing in, the food is being not delivered anymore, right? I mean, it's harder to breathe, it's just becoming a death trap in a way. And so that sometimes for myself, it's like, you know, for myself, there's no going back. There's just no going back anymore, right? There isn't. I mean, the future is happening, and the present is happening so quickly that the future is being dissolved so quickly, and that makes it difficult again, because you become disorientated. Where are you coming from? Where do you come from? You know, you realize that you're shedding your past, right? You're shedding, and when you're doing the cleansing and the purifications and the healing, right, that the past is falling away. You're no longer that victim anymore. You're no longer victim to to government, to authority, to parents, right? You're no longer, I mean, you've outgrown that, and you're not so bittered by it anymore. I mean, it's frustrating, you know, but it's you know, the Matrix world, it's frustrating that we still have to reside in it, but you know, there is an exiting happening. And so again, you know, there's one's removal of themselves from Plato's cave, from this timeline, in a sense, which requires the identity. So again, it is difficult having to be involved in the physical realm of things, in the one-dimensionality of things. It's burdensome a lot of the time. It's having conversations with people that you don't necessarily want to be speaking to, okay, or like realizing that you're not making any connection with them, right? They're not getting the depth of where you're coming from. They're not feeling where you're coming from. They're only understanding on a very, very small, minute scale, and so it's frustrating because you feel that distance. You realize, oh, okay, you know, we're not really corresponding here. We're not really sharing here. We're not really dancing together here. You feel that it's very, very limited. There's very little elbow room to move with them. Very little movement, availability of themselves to be present for you know, for your grander, wider, deeper experience. Right? In fact, they haven't got a clue what's going on for you. You know, and so that makes it also tremendously difficult as well, because you're tapping into something that is so thrilling, is so universal, that's so boundless, that's so full of so much potential, full of anxiety as well. All right, but you tap in, so you know, it's hard to talk about this to others. It's hard to share your deep insights with others, your lonely heart with others, right? It's hard to convince them, not that you've been trying to convince them, that there's something going on, right? That's transformational. Okay, that's the end of a paradigm. Okay, it's hard. They don't even know what you're talking about. They don't know the language, the words that you're saying. Right? It's foreign to them. And so that's hard. And so just coming back, you know, let's return to the innocence of that, you know, we're no longer playing in this game. It's quite outstanding, that, right? I mean, to a certain degree, right? We're taking the mystic's path and the end of history. You know, we're exiting the stage. I mean, we can see that if you are part of this Matrix world, if you're part of the Truman Show, going further, you can just imagine how hair-raising it's going to be, how compromising it's going to be for those that are part of it. Okay, the part that don't have the innocence again. Because once you return to the innocence, it's like you open, right? You humble, you expansive, you willing, right? You present, you interchangeable. You're able to, you know, maneuver, to bob and weave, and you know, but if you're part of the web of the Matrix and where its plan is for most people, if you're part of it, can you imagine if you were part of it, what you would be in 5 years' time? So enmeshed in it, so caught up in the dramas and the politics and the agendas and the energy and the overwhelmment and the anxieties and the stress and the mental disorders and the breakdowns, okay, and the depravity and the immorality and the lost of being so lost, dazed and confused, and in such fear. I've been spending time recently with people of Plato's cave, and I haven't for some time before then, and I just realized how scared they are and how much fear that they live in. Just, you know, fundamental, deep in their bones, in their very being, how much fear they're actually in and how much anxiety they're in. And again, there's different degrees of anxiety. So I'm not talking about the existential anxiety. I'm saying like that anxiety of just sheer it's difficult, it's hard to explain. I mean, that's a whole subject on its own. But the one anxiety is a feeling of being alive, in a sense. It's for myself, anxiety makes me question my reality, not in an unhealthy way. It makes me, that which I've taken for granted, right? It helps me see that that's not so much the case, right? That's like, you're not really in a real relationship with a lot of people in your life, right? You're not really part of this world, okay? You don't subscribe to, watching several hours of TV every day. You don't subscribe to the foods that have been made, the medicines that have been made. I mean, a lot of the time you just don't subscribe to it. You're an island onto yourself and away from everything to a certain degree, although you're in the physical, it's in close proximity, but you're not of that, right? I mean, when everybody's having a party inside the house, and drinking eggnog over Christmas or something like that, the whole family game and whatever, you walk outside and you feel, the cold breeze of the fresh snow or something like that, and you look up at the night sky, and you hear the people inside, and for some maybe it's nice, I'm saying the family is maybe true and authentic and loving and healing, and for some, but for many, I mean, if I know for myself that as soon as, let's say, I'm in a family environment and I walk outside and I lay my eyes on the clouds, or the sun setting, or there are birds just flying past and landing on a tree or something like that, whatever it might be that's more natural, I say that's my world, that's my dimension of where I play. That's where I feel safe. That's where I feel engaged. I did a talk, which I'll probably upload, about, when I was taking a walk in nature and how at home I felt, right? And how real it felt. And so that's what innocence is also, to return to that which is real, right? Which is ever present, everlasting, okay? Because it's infused with divine energy to a certain degree. I mean, it's all divine energy in a way, but there's different layers to divine energy. I'm saying, divine energy in Plato's cave is very much dressed up, is very much, it's not as close to its source as nature is. Let's say the man-made world is definitely in dogmas and media, social medias, whatever. It's all divine in a sense, but it's very fragmented. It's very compartmentalized. It's very far removed. Okay, and it's muddled up with all different other types of energies as well. Okay, so it's not in processed food. It's not close to its source, right? Where it's been severely processed, cooked, heated up, chemicals added, whatever it is, boxed, packaged, etc., thrown in with a whole lot of other ingredients or whatever it is, fake stuff, fake food, right? There is some parts of the original food in there, but it's not healthy. It doesn't even resemble what it once used to look like when it was at the source. And so that's what I'm saying, is that the innocence is getting in touch with that which is more closer to the source, that which is more true, that which is more authentic, that which has been infused with divinity, and the divinity lies close within that, right? Within that nature, within that animal, right? Within that plant, within the sunset, within the moon, within the stars, within the wind, within water, within song, okay, in certain rhythms, heartfeltness, poetry, all right, and it's in expressions of love, more pure in its form. And so that's the return of the innocence, is more to a real reality. Okay, so more of a real reality. And so it's getting weird, right? And for the individual, it's not business as usual. Okay, for the mystic, for the psychonaut, it's not business as usual. And and I think it's very exciting. I think it's very thrilling, and I think we need to make sure that our bags are packed. I'm saying that we're ready for the trip. That we are prepared. And where by that I'm just saying on a mental, psychological, spiritual, emotional, level, that we are prepared for what's happening now and what's to come. That our bags are packed. Because we're leaving it behind. Right? We're leaving it behind. And so again, I think that different narratives will play out, different storylines will happen, and a lot of different people, for lack of a better word, which have already shifted into certain timelines, which be already sort of, how would I say, segued off into different directions, different narratives, different themes. Okay, I think there is one massive theme that most people are going with, and I think that theme is being pumped with a whole lot of instruction, information. It's a world that's being developed and created, simultaneously as people are moving. It's like one of these games, one of these maybe even cell phone games or PC or Xbox or whatever games, where the creators of the game have invented maybe the first 50 levels, and when people start playing it, right, they haven't even reached the 50th level, the producers of the game are producing level 51, 52, 53, whatever it is, and they keep on continuing it, and so it keeps the narrative of that game, of that theme, moving in a certain direction. And so I think that the Truman Show, the Plato's Cave, the Matrix world is being directed heavily and and manipulated, even whatever it is, or carrot on the stick. And for most people are going that way, right? It looks like for them this is the path to take. It's the only path. They don't even know if there is a path, but they're just being led down it anyways. And so again, so that's going one way. Then there's other sort of timelines or whatever dimensions that are splitting off. And so again, for myself, I'd like to be more of that which is the natural path. And the natural path is the innocent path. It's the one where, again, you're realizing that your narrative, your story has been a work in progress, a work of art that you've gone through, and some of it's so dreadfully ugly and some of it's beautiful, but that you've gone through it in order to get to where you are on the soulful level that you are today, right? On the spiritual level that you are today, on the psychic level that you are today. There goes off my computer fan, and which I've commented on before, my laptop fan. So much more peaceful without it, but I forget, I get used to it. Anyway, without getting sidetracked, which I did do now. So it's where you are at, right? And so your intuition is definitely kicking in more, okay? Your insights are getting deeper, grander, and wider, all right? You're becoming more independent and less codependent. You're becoming more self-assured, right? And divinely assured, right? And that's difficult. That's why you got to do the work, because on the same hand, the hand that you've been dealt, which a lot of time you felt abused by, which you were abused by, and you felt victimized by, right? And you felt unjustified by, and that's made you bitter, and whatever it is, that is turning into ash. It's turning into dust before I'm saying that narrative, the very story, is falling away. And so if you're still holding those emotions towards it, if you're still identified as the victim, if you're still identifying as, the unjustified, right? And then you're still bittered by it and you're still hanging on to it, okay, then you're going to, there's going to be a conflict. You're not going to be able to necessarily, I don't know, this is what I'm feeling for myself. Like so much of my own past and what's happened and the people and the biggest players in my life, even this year, that have fallen away, right? And to say, cheerio, in a sense, like I've outgrown that. I don't need it anymore. It was so small for me. Again, it didn't work. I mean, whatever, it worked for the time that it was, but now for myself, I can't go back, right? In that way, right? You can't go back, and so you can't hold on to the impressions that have been, a lot of time have been impacted you in this world. It all flows, and so you can't necessarily be part of that narrative anymore. Like, you're nobody's son in a way, or daughter. You're nobody's sister or brother, right? To a certain degree, you're no one's boss, you're no one's employee, you're not somebody's employee, right? You're universal now. Okay, you're universal, which is a big game to be a part of, a big reality to be a part of. It really is. And so it's leaving behind the superficial. It's leaving behind the business as usual, the so-called professionals, the so-called know-it-alls, right? It's leaving behind the game, the charades, the masks, the personas. Okay. It's moving away completely and being fresh, being new, and being innocent. Right? And so that we can progress and go forth. Really. Yeah. So it's getting far out, folks, and it's just going to continue getting more far out. And so, Kansas is going bye-bye, as he says in the Matrix. So it's just something to think about and something to feel about and to something to have mixed feelings about at times, and it's just something to be really a part of. I don't know. Yeah. All right, folks. Thanks for taking the time. Chat soon.